Good afternoon, colleagues, and welcome to our webinar on reimagining play. This afternoon, we just want to invite God's presence in our midst as we go into this wonderful session. Let us pray. Eternal and awesome Father, we do give you thanks. You are indeed an awesome wonder. You are great and you're mighty. There is none like unto you. We give you thanks, God, for this day that you have made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Thank you, God, for the wealth of knowledge that you have given each and every one of us who will be taking part in today's session. I pray, God, that it will go according to your will and to your way. So we say thanks for all that you have done and all that you will continue to do in our lives. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. And I'm sure that we are all eagerly awaiting this session. And I must tell you that I too am anticipating a great session this afternoon. So as I would have informed you already, it is based on reimagining play. Now, specifically, we'll be looking at playful learning in today's context. Very fitting for a time like this. Reimagining and reshaping early childhood care and development amidst COVID-19 pandemic aims to explore how children, teachers, leaders, parents, and other relevant stakeholders can cope, grow, learn, and thrive in a new normal of uncertainty and volatility. Since we know that one constant and irrefutable fact that children learn through play, it is only fitting that we begin the conversation about strategies that support our children and mitigate the learning loss suffered as a result of COVID-19 pandemic. This play conversation aims to reconnect to what we know works, reimagine ways to create thriving schools and classrooms, reshape meaningful learning, responsive teaching and parenting, and dynamic and joyous learning environments that boost thriving in an uncertain post-COVID age. With us this afternoon, we have an esteemed panelist, and I'm just going to take a moment and introduce you to our panelist, who I know will be most capable of taking us through today's webinar. So we have with us Dr. Zoya Kincaid-Clark, Mrs. Simone Ellis-Dixon, Ms. Rochelle Williams, Dr. Sadie Harris-Mortley, Ms. Katie Daly, Ms. Gwyneth Cambridge, and Mrs. Nisha Codrington Ingram. So just to give you a background, remember I said that they are indeed an esteemed panelist. And so I'm just going to give you a brief introduction of each person. And I guess you can say, wave your hand so that persons will know who you are. So we have Nisha Codrington Ingram. She has been serving the teaching profession for over 20 years. She has served in both the early childhood and the tertiary education sector. Mrs. Codrington Ingram is currently a senior lecturer at Churches Teachers College, Mandeville, and the director of the Church Teachers College CSEC Institute. She's a dynamic, multifaceted, and a learned educator who holds a Master's of Arts degree in Early Childhood Education from the University of South Florida and a Bachelor of Science degree in History and Sociology. She has great passion for children and all that concerns their holistic development. Dr. Sadie Harris-Mortley. Dr. Sadie Harris-Mortley is currently a senior lecturer at Sam Sharp Teachers College with over 31 years experience in the Jamaican education system. She holds a diploma in teaching from Sam Sharp Teachers College, bachelor's in education from the University of the West Indies, Masters of Arts in education from the University of South Florida, and a PhD in education from Walden University. She's the author of one children's book, Linda Celebrates Her Birthday. She's a dedicated teacher of teachers, an area she loves and takes pride in executing. She facilitates, coaches, mentors, and scaffolds student teachers with pedagogies so that they can take their places in the learning environment for children. Currently, she's the chairman of the Mount Salem Open Bible Basic Schools Board, the Sunday School Superintendent, Children's Choir Director, Dance Ministry Leader, a member of the Planning Committee, and a Sunday School teacher trainer at her church. She's married to her husband, Errol, for 29 years, and the union has produced one adult son. Rochelle Williams. Rochelle Williams is currently a lecturer at Shorter Teachers College in Early Childhood Education and Development. She holds a master's degree with distinction in curriculum development and a bachelor's degree and a teaching diploma in early childhood education. Ms. Williams has had over 10 years of experience working with young children, their parents, as well as pre and in-service teachers. Ms. Williams is mother to a wonderful 19-month-old. Mrs. Simone Ellis Dixon. Mrs. Simone Ellis Dixon is a specialist in the field of early childhood development, holds a master's degree in early childhood education, leadership and administration, and a bachelor's with honors in early childhood development, both from the University of West Indies, Mona, and a diploma in early childhood education from St. Joseph's Teachers College. She's passionate about teaching and learning and has over 20 years experience working as an early childhood expert at different educational levels and in various capacities. She has conducted various parenting and teacher seminars and participates in numerous webinars and researches. She enjoys reading a variety of books, journals, and other materials, watching movies, and listening to music in her quiet time. She advises that you stay curious, ask questions, even if the answer is already known, because answers change constantly in light of new information. Mrs. Gwyneth Cambridge. Mrs. Gwyneth Cambridge is a retired senior education officer in early childhood education in the Ministry of Education in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. She has been a part of the education system for over 30 years, having taught at both primary and secondary level in Guyana and St. Vincent, where she resides. She holds a teacher certificate in primary education from the Cyril Potter College of Education, Guyana, as well as certificate in management and supervision from the University of the West Indies, Cave Hill. Mrs. Cambridge further holds a BEd first class honor in education administration from the University of West Indies, Cave Hill, and a master's in early childhood education from Southern Illinois University, USA, having been awarded an OAS scholarship. She has further obtained a certificate in counseling, UWI Open Campus. Mrs. Cambridge has a wealth of experience having taught students of grades 10 and 11 in English language and English literature in preparation for writing regional external examinations as they transition into community college. In the past, Mrs. Cambridge not only moderated for UWI examinations, but has also been moderator for the Commonwealth Best Practices in Early Childhood competition. In addition to having been a part-time lecturer at the Division of Teacher Education in Early Childhood Education, she has facilitated numerous workshops on a number of issues ranging from kindergarten readiness to gender equity in the early years and many more. Mrs. Kadian Daly Sama. She's acting head of the early childhood department. Having been lecturing, she has been lecturing at this institution for approximately 10 years. She's an early childhood inspector for approximately 4 years in the Early Childhood Commission. She has a keen interest in curriculum development and instruction and its impact on the growth and development of students for sustainable development. Dr. Zoya Kincaid Clark. Dr. Zoya Kincaid Clark is a senior lecturer and researcher in early childhood education at the University of the West Indies, Mona. She received her teaching diploma from Shortwood Teachers College, her Bachelor of Science in Early Childhood Education from Temple University, and her doctorate in education from the University of Sheffield. Prior to lecturing at the tertiary level, she taught kindergarten for several years, both in Jamaica and the wider Caribbean. Dr. Kincaid Clark is engaged in a number of research initiatives in areas germane to early childhood development. Some of these initiatives include early childhood teacher education, parenting in the early years, and exploring how students' transitions from the pre-primary to primary school can be more readily supported, especially for children from low resource communities and homes. Her current research focus is aimed at understanding how young children are shaped by their ecological experiences within the home and wider community, and how educators can build on these to support experiential learning in the early years. Ladies, welcome. I do hope that you're feeling welcome. And those persons who are joining us after hearing the wealth of information and knowledge from our esteemed panelists, I am sure that you know that we're in for a treat this afternoon. And so we're going to go right into our session. And we're going to begin with a quote. And I'm going to ask each panelist just to give your view based on this quote. And this quote is from Fred Rogers. It says, play is often talked about as if it were a relief from serious learning. But for children, play is serious learning. Play is really the work of childhood. I'll read it once again. It says, play is often talked about as if it were a relief from serious learning. But for children, play is serious learning. Play is really the work of childhood. What are your thoughts? Anyone can jump in first. All right, I could call then, since, you know, I'm seeing Mrs. Ellis Dixon on my screen. So go ahead, Mrs. Dixon.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. Play is fun. Play is joy. It inspires the children, inspires us as adults. We have been playing for the entire month. We have been enjoying that. It brings back memory to us. They can just imagine the children, how much they are enjoying this play. Children will always play. And when you look at learning and play, I don't think there's a distinction. I don't even think there's a correlation. It's equal. It's equal. Play has a significant role in promoting children's well-being and learning, and how is it that they interact with each other. As you mentioned before, it influences us. It gives us the opportunity to make choices, to create rules, to set boundaries. So play gives us all that opportunity.
Thank you. Dr. Clark?
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks so much for having me be a part of this webinar. Well, I think ultimately when we think about play, we have to realize that play is innately what children do. And at the early childhood level, it's important that we start off with where they are before we progress to where we want them to go. And so when we think about at the early childhood level, we need to consider, when we talk about serious work, children learn through play because that's what they authentically do. It comes naturally to them. Children never need to be taught how to play. You know, when we think about the different kinds of play or the different layers of play as children progress. From infancy, a child is playing by looking and seeing what's happening around, because that's how the child functions. When we think about it developmentally, we can't separate serious work from play, because play is, in essence, what children do when they need to work.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. Ms. Williams?
Thank you. Thank you for having me as well, and good afternoon, everyone. So in adding to the discourse, I just want to highlight the first statement from the quote you shared. And you said play is often thought about as if it were a relief from serious learning. And you know, as I hear the quote, I am brought back to thinking about our Jamaican ideas and conception of play as romping, and how, you know, the preconceived notion that, look, you need to stop the romping and do some serious work. And so the separation has really been there from many years ago. And so what we really ought to do is to reshape our thinking and a paradigm shift. I know we're getting there. We've been doing a good job at it. And so platforms like these really open the space and the opportunity to continue to explore and expand the importance of play in learning.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. I'll go now to Mrs. Cambridge. You're muted.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me. And I'm so excited about the topic because when you think of children, you cannot separate play from children. To my mind, play and learning for children is intertwined. There can't be any separation. And when we think of the quote that you said, and I quite agree with Mrs. Williams, that we normally tell the children, stop the playing and study your book. That's what we say to them. So to them, play is trivial. It is not very important. So what we have to do is allow them to see that there is joy. There is so much they can get out of play if they realize that these two concepts cannot be separated. We've got to help them to realize that for them, play is a release. It is a release psychologically, it's a release emotionally. It is that binding cord between themselves and their friends. So you have the whole social concept. I mean, we've got to get persons now to, as you know, another presenter said, to reimagine our whole concept of this thing called play. And if we make our children become excited about play, then I envision that a lot of learning is going to take place.
Thank you, Ms. Cambridge. Over to you now, Mrs. Codrington Ingram.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me. I strongly believe that my colleague, Rochelle Williams, was actually peeping on my mind or thinking about things that I would like to say. But if I should really talk about play, that it's looked at as if it were relieving of serious learning, I would immediately look at the culture, the mindset that we have towards play. You know, as if when we see a child just playing, we say that they're being idle. They're not doing anything, get active. So we would say to them, stop the playing and stop the ramping and go pick up your book, you know, in layman terms. But if we understand the impact play has on children's holistic development and what play means to them, then we would leave them alone and understand that it is not just a means of relieving them from serious learning, but they're actually learning. In the midst of their play, they are learning. And so I really believe that it's going to have to take some repositioning of the mind, you know, some, or probably reminding them of how they used to play and how much fun it was back then. And, you know, to remind them that, hey, play is actually fun.
Thank you, Mrs. Codrington Ingram. Over to you now, Ms. Daly. I'm not hearing you. No. No, we're not hearing. All right, so while we wait to see how best we can, the IT maybe can offer some support, I'm just gonna go over to Ms. Mortley at this time.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for having me as well. And I will concur with my colleagues that play and learning cannot be separated. For young children, play and learning cannot be separated. Play is a part of children's life and the means by which they come to understand what they do, what they are being taught, and how they learn in life. So I would say that we need to change the mindset of persons to understand that play is not a bad thing. As my colleague says, persons use this as a punishment to say, go take up your book. But play is something that the children manifest or show what they are learning. And if you watch children playing, you will know exactly what they are learning or what they have learned. So we have to change the mindset of some of our parents and some of our teachers to say that play is not a bad thing, but it enhances the learning process.
Well said, all of our panelists. I really hear a lot of things coming out in that play and learning really cannot be separated, even from a child, because play is a child's world. I hear where we have to start from where the children are, and that we also must have that paradigm shift from what we are used to as a culture, a Jamaican culture, or maybe Caribbean culture, that is. And also that play is basically a release psychologically, socially, physically, and so on, all right? And that we should bring ourselves back into the position where we were as children. We loved to play, and if we were not able to play, then just how did it make us feel? And so I thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on that quote, and I say it was well said. And so we're going to continue the conversation, which I know is, it's well needed. And as East Early Childhood Commission, we're celebrating Play Month, and so we really want to just, boost this even more. So I have a few questions that I'm going to be asking our panelists. I'm so sorry that I'm not seeing Mrs. Daly Salmon. I'm sure she will join us after she would have rectified the situation. We really want to hear her thoughts as well. So I have a question for our panelists. What do you think is the distinction between play and learning, if there is? What is the distinction between play and learning? And anyone can jump in at any time. I see Mrs. Ingram right off the bat, ready to go.
Oh my goodness, where do I begin where this is concerned? Of course, we know that we can always look up, the meaning of what play is and what learning is. And, off the bat, we can say that play is a medium through which children make sense of their experiences. One can also say that play is the work of children, and it consists of all those activities performed for, self-amusement and for behavioral, social, and psychomotor rewards, right? It is child-directed, and the rewards are, and the reward is very intrinsic. And if we look at the definition of learning, it's the acquisition of knowledge or skills through study, experience, or being taught. Now, if we as early childhood specialists really look at what is the distinction between play and learning, we would say that there's really no distinction. Because I strongly believe, and I believe that my colleagues also share into the idea that you can't do one without the other. Because while you're playing, you are learning. And if the definition says that it's the acquisition of knowledge and skills through study, experience, or being taught, they acquire all of this through play. And so I believe that play, there's no real distinction between play and learning in this context, that they learn during play. And they learn so many skills, so many social skills, so many physical skills, so many problem-solving skills. There's so many things that you learn, that skills that you cannot be taught physically. that they have to discover, that they have to learn, that they have to explore in order to learn it. And so my opinion is that there's no real distinction. Of course, there is a definition of what play might be and what learning might be, but I really believe that they're intertwined and knitted, and there's no real distinction between them both.
Thank you.
All right.
That was well said by Mrs. Ingram. But what I want to say, as she was speaking, something came to my mind. You know, when we say to children, go and take up your book and study, automatically they are looking at the learning process, as somebody said, as if it's a punishment. So we are our worst enemies in terms of getting our children to love to learn. And we stop them from realizing that learning is not confined just to the books, but learning occurs in our environment, in what they do. And so if we're going to say, is there a distinction? Of course, it's not in effect, that distinction. But I'm saying, it comes right back again to us changing the mindset of our people, of not saying to the children, as if play is so insignificant or trivial, to pick up your book and go study, but rather ask them, what are you doing? Share with me what you're learning, so that it becomes the parent, the teacher, become a part of the child's world.
Well said. Ms. Williams, I believe you were going to be talking. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Yes, and so totally in agreement. My response right away is there's absolutely no difference or distinction between play and learning. Learning is play, play is indeed learning. And so as we think about play, we really need to conceptualize it on a continuum, in the sense that at one end we have free play, where it's child-directed, yes, and children freely go and explore with the materials and they are learning. Whilst at the other end, we have the teacher-directed or the guided play, where the teacher now has a role also in helping the children to learn. So they are absolutely inseparable.
Hi, everyone. I really want to say, I'll take a slightly different spin from my colleagues in this regard, because while we always say that play and learning there's no distinction, the reality is that there is a slight distinction in that through play, you are automatically going to be learning. But learning doesn't always have to be done through play, because children may learn situations and dynamics which may not, sadly, come through play. So it's what children are exposed to, but positive play and positive learning are inextricably linked. But I really want to highlight that, and I think this is where there is a little bit of a challenge, recognizing that positive play and learning go hand in hand. But there are some situations where children learn things that may often not come through play. And those are negative situations, those adverse environments and contexts that children are exposed to. It's not through play. And we need to be careful sometimes when we say these things, because children can end up taking away wrong information. And so I just wanted to highlight that. But truth be told, my colleagues have really done a phenomenal job of highlighting that. But I just wanted to, put that into play a little bit.
All right, so wonderful. We're having a really robust discussion. And the question that that our panelists have been responding to is, what is the distinction between play and learning? I see that we have Miss Daly joining us again. And so I give you the opportunity, Miss Daly, to go ahead and give your response.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. The internet issues are always popping up. Sorry about that. play, if there is a distinction, that was the question, between play and learning.
Yes.
For me, there are a few distinctions. I know that, it is freely chosen, it happens naturally, but there are times when each individual child may not find the activity pleasurable. And that is the distinction for me. So while we may think that it is okay and everybody is having fun, if it is not pleasurable, then it may not be played for that specific child. That's my view.
Okay, thank you very much. Wonderful to hear your voice and hear you, chiming in on our discussion. Is there anybody else who wants to respond to this question? All right. So we're going to move on to our other question. And for those of us who are viewing, we want you to be a part of the conversation. You can type your questions or comments in the chat as well, because we're just having a discussion. We want to hear from you, because we know that you too have your own opinions as it relates to reimagining play. So what is your response to this? Amidst the global education crisis, in what ways is play still relevant to early childhood development? Amidst the global education crisis, in what ways is play still relevant to early childhood development? All right, Mrs. Martley, do you want to take that one? Go ahead.
Okay, so play gives children the opportunity to learn what no one can teach them. So children learn on their own, they learn concepts, they learn skills. So even though we are in a pandemic, we still have to give the children opportunity to play. For physical play, we may not have them with the social play, but also for emotional play as well. So it gives rich opportunities and it leads to the children having success. They feel confident. So we would get into the benefits of the play there, because you allow them to play. You give them the opportunity so that they can play. Okay.
Thank you. Well said, Mrs. Mortley. Mrs. Dixon, would you want to go ahead?
Yes. With the global crisis, I'm going to just stick to pandemic for a while. And it has highlighted a lot of gaps that we have in our education system, not only in our Caribbean or Jamaica, but internationally. Because if you look at a lot of studies that have done, lots of persons out there, a lot of countries have experienced this global crisis, and they are wondering what to do, because when the pandemic hits, schools close, and a lot of persons, lot of children. When I was reading a study over 1.6 billion children are affected by this pandemic, and it's not only restricted to only closed school, but those not restricted to closure of schools, but also the gaps that exist in our education system. We didn't have the perfect education system at the time, but it has highlighted a lot. Now we're talking about learning loss. Have we failed our children? I begin to wonder, are we doing what we ought to for our children? Another study said we are focusing so much on testing our children. We are so focused on testing. What is their academic ability? What is it that they are able to do? And because of that, we are missing the children, giving them the opportunity to explore, to learn other skills, to discover things for themselves. A lot of us get that opportunity to discover things for ourselves. So we want that same thing for our children. Are we testing them too much? Are we so focused on testing and ensuring that these children learn, and the data, the request for data for children is so, it is so important to educators or to the education system that we have created. You know, we have our grade 1 learning profile, we have this, we have that, we have this. And at the end of it, is it that our children are learning? Are we benefiting from this? Or just to show that, you know, we have our data, we can write, we can this, we can do anything. But at the end of the day, is it that the children learning? Why is it that we have so much gaps and we are testing? You know, I keep wondering about these things. Is it just solely literacy and numeracy is our focus now? I went to a school the other day and she said, Miss, we have to focus on literacy and numeracy because we are looking at the learning loss. Why? Our children at this stage, early childhood stage, learn through play. Yes, I understand the distinction that was mentioned. Our early childhood children is an integrated approach we take. Is it that we're going to take that integrated approach, the play-based approach also? But why is it that we're so heavy on testing? Who is it that we are testing? Is it that we are questioning the teacher? Assessment is good enough, but is it that the children are getting what is 1 + 1? Or what letter sound is this? Or is it the teacher now, because she interacts with the child or the children, she's able to say, okay, Mary is able to. So is the teacher's knowledge and interaction is going to give us that result? So which of the results are we more focused on? Testing the child, let the child actually sit in front of you in a big testing thing, or is it that the teacher's knowledge go on paper?
Wonderful food for thought. You have really given us a mouthful of information there, and even sharing your experiences that you have been having when you visit our early childhood institutions. And I can say that even recently, perhaps when we would have, asked for play day and for the children to really engage in play, there would have been some persons who were asking, are we still supposed to be allowing the children to play, knowing that it's COVID-19 and we're supposed to be doing our observing the protocols? Yes, so I can see that you've touched, Mrs. Dixon, in terms of some of the barriers that is preventing the implementation of play, and that is maybe perhaps some of the expectations from the other areas of education as it relates to our children, and even parental expectations as well. All right, anyone else from the panel you want to pick up from here? Go ahead, Mrs. Ingram.
I like what Ms. Dixon was highlighting, because it was one of my barriers, when I was looking at it, I was saying, this is one of the barriers. However, when you asked that question and said, amidst the global educational crisis, in what ways is play still relevant? As if it has lost its place or it is not necessary, if it's still relevant, is that as if I'm saying as an early childhood educator, can you really have an early childhood program without implementation of play? Because I entered this field years ago, even though I may wear it well, but I've been in this field years ago. And play is what I understand to be the heart of an early childhood program, and it is the center of the curriculum. If we look at how the curriculum is constructed, it is really constructed around activity-based, play-based. Well, given our system, how much play-based can it really be? Because I really think that the system don't have the shift, doesn't have the mindset, and it goes against what we believe in as educators. What should actually be happening out there in the system is as if it's as if commission and kindergarten is in a bubble by itself. You know, is it that it's only we over here who understand the importance of play in education, and after they have left us, it goes into subject base, it goes into content, it goes into emphasis on learning the content, you know? And I really feel like this is the Bible. The content is the Bible. And early childhood teachers would say to me, Miss, you can say anything you want to say, you know? I need to ensure that my students learn this. And even if they're not ready, I need to pull them up to learn this. Or my principal is going to say that my students are behind. Or the parents are going to be saying that I don't like this particular teachers because I think my child is not learning. I mean, I know I'm touching a little bit on the barriers here, but we need to also understand that play cannot be irrelevant. Play is always going to be relevant for the mere fact that we don't have to punish a child to play. We don't have to pay them to play, you know. This is something that they want to do. And this is something that research have, you know, theories, research have already been documented the importance of what play is. It's the way how children learn. It's the way how they express their understanding. Play provides a window into their lives, you know, and it provides an avenue for children to practice emerging skills and concepts and enable you to even assess their mental status or their capabilities, you know. And so I don't know if I should even think of it as still being relevant. I know the crisis that has been happening, and I know the impact that it has been having on teachers and on parents. Boy, I don't know. I have a child and I really look at her on the
I'm not sure if maybe there are internet connectivity issues with Mrs. Ingram at the moment, but as soon as she returns, we'll allow her to continue her discussion. But is there anyone else who wants to respond to the fact that there's a global education crisis and is space irrelevant? In what way is space irrelevant?
Well, I'll say this much. Miss Ingram is gone and my internet is also spotty, so that could very well happen to me at some point. But I'm sure she'll be coming back. I think it's important. I just want to insert this as well. We're in a global crisis, and we're not short of crises in Jamaica, you know, and the Caribbean. So I have a colleague from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and we have, I shared the link with, you know, my students and stakeholders from across the region. So I just want to say this. I think it's important for us to remember that, you know, if we think about Montessori, and sorry for bringing any theory into all of this discussion, but Montessori, with her conceptualizing, you know, children and what children should be doing and plays children's work, etc. We have to understand that when Montessori said that, it was shortly after World War II when the world was in a serious state. And that was a big crisis. I can also think about after Hurricane Gilbert, sorry, I'm showing my age, where despite all the things that were happening, children still played. After Hurricane Ivan devastated the Caribbean, devastated. You know, images in Puerto Rico, images in Grenada, when 90% of Grenada was completely devastated, they had images of children playing. When we had the Dudus incursion in downtown Kingston in Jamaica, when the Gleaner went there, they found children playing. And so I think, you know, the whole notion of, you know, we try to romanticize it and whatever, but at the end of the day, play is healing for children. And I think that's something that we have not really discussed. Play is healing. Play provides a space and an opportunity for children to, you know, to do well. It's mental health. You know, we're talking a lot about mental health in Jamaica, and we haven't really begun to touch the tip of the iceberg in terms of mental health and young children. But play provides an opportunity for children to release the stresses that they encounter on a daily basis. And so for young children, you know, one of the things why they want to go back to school is because they want to play with their friends. Sorry for us, they don't want to see us as teachers, you know. I mean, maybe they would, it's not us. They want to see their friends. They want to play with their friends. And I always say, I use this as an analogy. I say, COVID has been the biggest thief around town. No other entity, no other person has robbed us more than COVID. And COVID has taken away children's authentic way of living. And I mean, what else can we say about that? So, in essence, Ms. Covington, yeah, you can continue, but, you know, the essence of play allows children to be who they are.
You may go ahead, Mrs. Ingram.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that. The same criminal has taken my words from me, you know, this platform here, using this platform to actually learn. But as I was trying to say before I left here, that I had to sit and technically watch my daughter in prison, to be honest. And when I watched her, she was moving, not staying, and she wiggling because she felt confined and not being used to being like this. And her performance academically went down because my child is a social being, you know, and how she found herself being active is trying to correct everybody on the platform. And she would say, Miss Reed, your point, your mic is on. Can't you stay still, Miss Zoya? Say, you want to behave yourself? And she started to complain for everybody who is in front of her, you know, and so she complained bitterly, wanting to go to school. The day that face-to-face resumed, my daughter was up and ready from 5:30 in the morning. She was ready, wanting to go out there, you know, and she loves school. And I don't think it's the work that she wanted. She actually just wanted to see her friends, you know, and she wanted to socialize and she wanted to talk and she wanted to do all of these things. And so I know that, you know, the platform, it is a crisis. It is a crisis, but play is still relevant. And she still complains that, Mommy, we don't play. We still don't play. No PE not happening. The teacher don't let us play. We just stay there in our isolated little boxes right here. We don't interact. We don't really, you know, we're still there. And so even though they're out there in the system, the focus is still on content. The focus is still on accomplishing the work, finishing the textbook, you know, finishing what the curriculum asks you for. So play is not really happening. I don't know if it is happening in your side of the town, but in my side of the town, play is still not happening.
And so in listening to all that you had to say, I don't know, Ms. Cambridge, do you want to give your response? Do you think that play is still relevant in early childhood amidst the crisis? I know you have from another Caribbean country.
Right. So I was saying that in terms of St. Vincent, so we had a double whammy as it is. So you've had the pandemic and then we had the volcanic eruption. And so the children themselves had two different things to deal with. And so while the global pandemic was going on, we had our own internal situation happening here. For us, what was relevant was that the children, I'm going right back to piggyback on what Mrs. Clark said, that the whole aspect of the psychological effect. We have to do a lot of psychosocial support for the little children. They were traumatized, not only because they're not able to go to school to see their friends and play, but for those in the red zone who had to come away from their homes and go into shelters where they had to interact with persons that they never knew. It caused a lot of trauma. The children were really, really, in terms of they didn't know how to relate to each other. And so what was happening is that we had the social development department sent in some of the counselors into the schools so that they could offer psychosocial support, so that they could allow them to do things that would make them, interact with others. And as a result of that, it was diffusing the stress. And that is what play does, because they used the play platform to diffuse the stress that they were feeling. And they also use the whole host of things that they do through play, the role play aspect of acting out. Okay, the super is coming. Okay, what are you going to do? And the children were able to deal with their fears, because some of them were waking up scared because the suffering is erupting. And I can't see my friends to talk about it. And so what is happening is that we have to realize that we can't take the play out. It is going to diffuse the situation for the children, so that the situation is not going to be bigger than, but rather they're allowed to see that, okay, I can deal with this if I just see it as if it's just a part of nature. Let's act it out. Let's try it. So you can't, while I agree, with Mrs. Dixon, that it's a whole host of things, because yes, we have been teaching to the curriculum. That is reality. And because we teach the curriculum, then everything else gets shoved down. And our children, unfortunately, are the ones who are paying the price. Let's try to change the dialogue. Let's try to change the narrative. Let's try to change our mindset and say, all right, bring this back in and see where the difference is going to be observed.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cambridge, for sharing that information in relation to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where you are at. And we see in your discourse, we've found solutions, definitely, to some of the barriers that we would have mentioned before. So, colleagues, I'm going to ask you to I'm going to twin the two together. So, are there any other barriers to the implementation of play? And give a solution. How is it we can address these barriers? So, are there any other barriers to the implementation of play, and how can we address these barriers?
Okay, I'll go ahead. The barriers, I agree with all of the barriers that I've heard before. And staff motivation is also a barrier for me. The teachers need to be motivated. They need to be I would say you need to get them back on track. Help them to remember where they were and the importance of play and what they used to do, and get them back on track. So staff motivation, I believe, is also a barrier, because the institution, some of them, they're back to face. So in terms of implementation and monitoring of these guided play activities, they need to be, the leaders of the institutions need to get their teachers back at that place, because the teachers know that play is important. A lot of them, they know. So I think they need to be motivated. They need to get back on track. We just need to, nudge them a little bit to say, the importance of it. You have seen it. We just want to get you to be motivated again, to get children to start playing. The little things they used to do in class, the dance, the fun. Remember, even though they're not face to face like they were before. I was listening to a song not too long ago. It's a song that it was out a long time, Pon the River, Pon the Bank. And there was a game, Pon the River, Pon the Bank. And, our culture embraced play in many ways, through our music, through our dance, the current dance moves, right? So there are different things that we embrace in our culture that also see play as a part of our day-to-day activities So our teachers, our parents, they know that play is important. We just need to motivate them to get back on track. So I think that will address some of the barriers that we're facing in play.
Indeed. Thank you, Ms. Daly. Anyone else wants to give your view on this? Barrier?
I'll just insert something else. So, a phenomenal panel has really done, provided really solid points. But I think one of the things that we have yet to talk about is issues surrounding screen time. That's a big thing. That's a big barrier to play, where children now consider play to be a problem because it's not on the screen. And, I'm once again showing my age, but in my days, TV used to sign off and you had to go out and play. But now children are reluctant because we have done a very good job as adults of telling children that play is not the best thing to do. And so now the children have learned that message quite well, and they have now figured out what else they can do to occupy their time. So I think a big part of it has to do with screen time. We used it, it was an important tool for us, during the pandemic, as a means of ensuring that we continued with education. But the screen time has really been a major barrier. And once again, I will always insert another barrier that we haven't really spoken about is for many children is crime and violence. Crime and violence is a major deterrent to children's ability to play. So they play, children use it as a means of healing, but during times of violence, it hinders and it is a barrier to their ability to play. So I could tell you stories going into schools and having to duck because of all these things that are happening and children struggling. So they weren't allowed to go outside to play on the playground because there was something happening in the community. So that was a barrier, physical play that children, 3-year-olds need, that physical play, running up and down. They were prevented from doing that simply because of the circumstances in the community. So that is also another barrier that I think we really haven't touched on. But certainly screen time and the heavy reliance on tablets to keep our children occupied because it keeps them sitting still. We have bought into it as parents. It allows us to sit in the restaurant and eat a meal for half an hour. We're all guilty of it. It allows us to keep them quiet so we can get some work done. But it is to their disadvantage, and it is to their, it has negative implications for them as well, because it takes away the opportunities that they have to develop those wholesome skills and the social dividends that play promises children.
I'd like to.
I would add to Zoya's presentation that the screen time is really a barrier. As young as the baby is, the parent would be giving the child the tablet or whatever to have some screen time. And when you look at this, we really have to steer parents away, change their perception. That barrier, the perception that play is a bad thing. Because when I teach play, I said, I can hear the laughter of the children. It is fun-filled. It is pleasurable. And it is what the children want. It's not what we want, but what the children want, what they are going to be interested in, and what they will learn from it. So if we take that away from them, we are taking away the learning. So when we talk about learning loss, we are actually pulling away how they would learn and gaining more concepts and skills that they would do, but no one can teach them. So I would agree with my colleagues that the play, when we have these barriers, the 21st century skills will not be realized because they won't be able to do the critical thinking skills. They won't be able to do the problem solving. And so we will have more loss there in learning because they will not learn how to think for themselves, to be creative, and to just be a person for themselves, have their own self-concept and their own self-esteem when they engage in their own play.
I just want to chime in a little bit on that. You know, for a barrier, I know that we have spoken about it extensively, but I'm sorry. My colleagues have highlighted screen time. And it's not that I am against what you're saying, but I would also say that the younger generation would say that it's the evolution of times. To say that this is the way how we actually play, you know, it's their new definition of what play is. And we also need to take into consideration who are the current parents now, the age group of the current parents that we have now. When Zoya and Sadie would say back in my days, what is their days now? You know, what is it that they play with now? You know, and so we would like to understand that the generation that are current parents are the younger generation that did not grow up on the mango seed and the grass straw and the dandy shandy and the Chinese skip and the marble and the gig and these things, you know, and the hand games that we grew up on, that we found that we were more rounded and fulfilled, but it's the now generation. And so I would really would like to see a conversation, because if I should tell my child about the things that we do, they would look at me like, oh, you're so old. You're so archaic. I mean, where are you coming from? You know, games like that, but you tell them about Roblox, you tell them about, you know, everything that is digitally oriented. You know, we do not know how to play. This generation, frankly, just don't know how to play. And we do not like what we see as play. What we see, we need now to have a dynamic mind shift to actually now embrace what theorists have put into research, what we understand play to be. Because as I said to you, what is play now? It's actually digital. And we want to say to them, move away from screen time and go and play. They're just going to sit down and say, I am bored. They are going to sit and say, I am bored, there is nothing to do. So we need to educate the parents who are in the now time as to the different ways in which you can utilize what is around you. The mere going out to the town, what you can do, being deliberate about play. What are some specific things that you can implement to say that this is fun? You know, I have done it with my child. I use my child as a guinea pig, you know, and when she do it and when she actually play, she see me in a different light. So it creates that bond, it creates that shift, and it actually let me introduce my days to her nowadays, you know, my back then days to her nowadays, you know. And so I think that we need to start comparing notes. I think that we need to start reintroducing games that were back then to now, you know, because the things have not really changed. The boxes are still around, the elastic bands are still around, the marbles are still around, you know, grass still around, you know, mud is still around, flowers still around, you know, those things still exist. You know, it's what we can do now to merge the times, the evolution of the times. Can we merge them? Can we have a conversation? Can we remind or roll back the curtains through media, through documentations, through conversations like these, you know, having this type of platform? You know, can we actually stop the talking and do the physical thing? You know, I know that we had a play day across Jamaica, but who did it really target? You know, what did it really do? Did it really, you know, did it really revamp that fire that we had when we really played, that they played effortlessly and don't remember that they're hungry and remember that they want to go to the bathroom, you know, and remember, you know, this is what play does. It makes you lose track of time, you know. And so my thing is that we need to have a system that understands the effects or the impact of play. Yes, we have. I just think that the system is not unified, to be very honest. You know, it is not unified here. We have the commission and we have the early childhood level that understand what play is. But when they reach 5, like right now, when I look at what is expected through curriculum, and how they're expected to write curriculum and it feels very subject oriented and nothing is happening. And we're moving now, when we're reaching grade 1, it feels like high school. I'm sorry, it feels like high school to me. And the higher they go, it feels like college, you know, and everybody's doing research. I look at the projects that are sent home. It's not for children, it's for the parents. You know, I really don't know what they get out of it. I think they just send on these projects just because they want to put a grade in, but they have lost the whole essence of what it is. I know I'm talking too much, but it's how I really feel about here, you know, at this point.
Right.
Could I jump in? Could I jump in?
Okay, and then Ms. Williams.
Yes. Yes, I'm just saying that I like Mrs. Ingram's passion. I really do. Because what she's saying is the reality of what we're living in. What is important, because that in itself, and Mrs. Clark spoke about it, the screen time, where we have, even to the babies, Mrs. Murphy talked about it too. We give them the tablet, and we let them play to keep them quiet. Now, the thing is that we know what the problem is. What are we going to do about it? So the first thing we're going to have to say, that is a barrier. Yes, it's a barrier. So what are we going to do about it? And it's not only, you know, restricted to Jamaica. I think it's something that is happening across the Caribbean. So what are we going to do about it? One of the things that, to me, I'll share you something personal that I wondered at, and I'm saying somebody needs to do a research. Now, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, there has been an increase in the number of children who are being diagnosed with autism. And one of the things that I was wondering, you know, I'm kind of toying with this idea. There's supposed to be some kind of research, because for me, a personal situation is that I have a little goddaughter whose mother felt so good that at 3 months, this child's eye was following the screen of a tablet. And she would put on these games on the tablet, and this 3-month-old child was glued to it. Now, fast forward to this child being 3 years old, and the child is still glued to the tablet, but the child's verbal skills are affected. The child's social skills are affected. Is there a relationship between the same screen time and the development of our children? That is something. So, I mean, I am excited about what we're saying here. I'm excited. I'm really excited. But I'm saying we've got to find a solution to bring play back into the mix. And to my mind, it's going to be, it is bigger than, because parents are going to have to face themselves and say that even though it is the now parenting style, there is something in it that is adversely affecting our children that we need to pull back. So I'm saying, I mean, great discussion. I am really eager for us to take this to the next level, because we need to find a solution.
May I go ahead?
Certainly, Ms. Williams.
All right, thank you. Wow, there has been so many useful points coming out of the discussion. Really, I do not think there is a lack of research. I think the lack is the implementation, is the research and action. We have a wealth of research that has been done throughout the years. And one of the main barriers to me is an unprepared environment. And unprepared on the part of parents, and I can talk and I'll explain, and unprepared on the part of teachers. Now, an easy fix sometimes may be to give a tablet, in comparison to gathering some seashells, keeping some boxes at home, giving the child the box to play in, whether it's free play, if it's a guided play situation in a classroom setting, preparing the materials and just having them on hand, they're ready to have the children explore and learn the different content and skills that have been intended to learn. So to me, one of the main barriers is that unprepared environment. And going back to what Dr. Kincaid Clark said about Maria Montessori, yes, just touching on that, the value and the importance of a prepared environment. And I think going back to what my colleague, Mrs. Ingram, had said, parents need to know the hows. So yes, having understood how can I implement play, right? This is what I need to do. So on a casual Saturday, for example, if I'm home with my daughter, and I may have a number of things to do, I am planning from before, what are some of the things that I can do to engage my daughter on that Saturday instead of having her glued in front of a screen. So going back, it's not a lack of research, it's just for us to know, is there a manual, or let's not say maybe parents don't even have time to go and read a manual. How can parents access that information on how are some of the things that we can engage our children in?
Thank you, Ms. Williams. You brought up some salient points because I'm seeing where you are giving some solutions to some of those barriers that were mentioned before. And you're also looking at how, in this Caribbean context, can we create conditions for our children's success through play. And you have said that we have to prepare the environment and be intentional. So panelists, I'm going to ask again this question, and I'd love for you to respond to this. In the Caribbean context, how can we create conditions for our children's success through play?
May I speak?
Go ahead, Mrs.
Okay. Again, I'm just going to use the word being deliberate, to be honest. Being deliberate, being intentional in creating conditions, in your own space. And we can create conditions in our system. We can create conditions in our homes to be deliberate about play. Right? When I say be intentional in our system, even though we have a system that is prescriptive in terms of a timetable, what is set, they come in for this, come in for the arrival and they have this and they have that and they have, activities throughout the day, to be deliberate in the methodologies of implementation of play from the teacher's behalf, being deliberate in terms of creating the conditions, that children can be successful in play, reminding yourself of what you were taught in the college, of creating the different centers and being deliberate about using outside play as a part of your delivery method, for parents to actually use the home, use the cooking, use the cooking experiences as a way of interacting with your children, going outside, relieving yourself too of the cares of life and play with your children, and so we can be deliberate about creating conditions. We create the condition as a parent, as a teacher, as an aunt, as an individual, to just be deliberate in understanding that if we be deliberate about play, and we understand the impact that play has on the whole learning of a child, then we will know that it doesn't matter where we are from and in what context or in what country we're at, that we can create the conditions by just being deliberate about it.
I'm concurring with you, Mrs. Ingram, about purposeful planning. And I'm happy you mentioned the system as well, because we had the Early Childhood Commission. We recognize that. Hence for this session. And we are thinking to look at the curriculum. The conceptual frameworks address these 9 principles, learning through play, We now have to look at that and see how best we can start implementing, as Ms. Williams said. Implementation, we are not short on researches, because if you read, if you search, you go to the journal, they are there, but we lack implementation. So now we now have to hold the teachers accountable, the teachers hold us accountable too, here that represent the system. The teachers, colleges, the parents, every one of us now as stakeholders must be held accountable to bridge that gap, the then and now. I remember telling my daughter, you need to go and play. She said, I'm playing. And she showed me the phone. Oh, I'm playing a game. And then it hit me and said, oh, that's not the play. Let us go outside. And then she started complaining about the sun. The sun too hot and all these barriers that we spoke about. But as we said, we must hold ourselves accountable, hold our teachers accountable, and the system that we represent, or the system that we are a part of, or the system that we have created, we now must be held accountable to let the children realize the then and the now, and see we can have some good children coming up.
Indeed.
I agree with my my colleagues, but also two areas in this pandemic that has affected our children, and two areas also in the school system, and that is the physical play, and that is what we're trying to say, the screen time and all of that. But the physical play, when children are in the class for the whole day, we keep them in the class for the whole day. At the end of the day, they run outside and they shout. So they want that release. They want the release from the pent-up emotions that they have. And the emotional play there, we use it when they are having issues and we want to do play therapy. So we have to look at the different types of play. Yes, in the cognitive play, we allow them with the centers and all of that, but the physical play, as my colleague, Mrs. Dixon says, they would make excuses to say that the sun is hot or whatever. We can find different times when we do something to let them expend the energies that they have. A lot of energy is pent up during this pandemic because children don't have the opportunity to go outside and play. And Zoya spoke also about the crime-riddled areas as well. They don't go outside to play because of what might happen. So as we're saying, reimagining the play spaces as well, we have to look at those things. Let them go out and do the physical play, because that is what we want of them. The health department now is saying that they have to bring in some moves and all of that because of the obesity and all of that. So we have to look at the holistic areas of play, the physical, the social, the emotional, and the cognitive play.
I'm in such agreement with everything as well. And might I add to Dr. Mortley that as I think about what you have been saying, I am reminded about how it takes a village to raise a child. And I believe the pandemic especially has really brought this home to us. Parents became teachers. Parents needed support, other family members, the church. So it really does take a village. And so this village that surrounds the child, when we think of Uwe Bronfenbrenner, the ecological systems theory and the importance of all of this surrounding the child, all parties need to know, understand, value, appreciate play, and learn how it is that I can successfully implement play in my spaces. How can I support? How can home support school? How can school support home, etc.? So these connections, I believe the pandemic has really highlighted the significance of how it takes a village to raise a child. And so we really need to tap into that.
Thank you so much. And I know that this discussion could go on for the entire day, for the entire week, and even further on. But we are coming now to a close. And so I am going to give each panelist just a short, a few seconds to give your closing remarks as it relates to what we have been discussing here. While you're putting your thoughts together, I just want to share that there are persons in the chat who have been agreeing with what you have been saying. I see where Mrs. Capelli, she said that I agree 100%. Dr. Kincaid Clark plays healing. It is an outlet for children. Plus, and she put in capital letters, you know, it adds to all angles of their development, emotional, social, and physical. And I'm seeing where, you know, Mrs. Casey Archer Howell said, she agreed with you, Mrs. Dixon, when you made your point. She said interacting and also observing our children is key to supporting their learning. So thank you very much. Those who have attended this session and you're participating. If you have any questions, remember you can type them in the chat. If you have a question for our panelists, as they prepare to make their closing remarks. All right, seeing where persons are saying the session has been excellent, and it's we really need to bring the good old days back. And Daniel says that we need to let these children play. All right, because so persons are agreeing that play is really important. So over to you now, our panelists. You can go ahead now and make your closing remarks as it relates to play. So we can start with Mrs. Ellis Dixon.
So I am committed, my team and I, we are committed to ensure that our children in this era play more, and while they play, they learn.
Dr. Clark, followed by Ms. Williams.
Yeah. All right. I'll just say this. I think if we really need to be convincing persons about the importance and value of play, I think it's important for us to remember that many of the skills that children need in school, those academic skills, they're built on the foundation that play provides and play sets. And if, you know, all of us, we all have experience in the classroom. And I always say, you know, the language skills that children get through play, the self-regulatory skills they get through play, the social skills they learn through play. When you're in the classroom, a child who does not have those self-regulatory skills, the language skills, the social skills, is a child who will not be able to function and learn. So if we need to convince anyone, you know, just bear that in mind. Bear in mind that that foundation that is set in play or through play cannot be replicated in anywhere else.
And I also would like to add, you know, in closing, that now more than ever, we must understand the power of play. And going back to what Dr. Kincaid Clark would have mentioned, the healing power of play, and its importance in mental health, not only for children, but also for their families. Right? So that's very important. We also need to view play on a continuum. Play that is wholesome. Play is integrated. Play is a child's work, and children should be allowed to play.
Thank you. Over to Mrs. Cambridge, Mrs. Mortley, and then Mrs. Codrington Ingram.
All right. I just want to say as well, I agree with everything that my colleagues have said. And I want to leave this with us, that play inspires curiosity in our children, creativity, and it stimulates their imagination. I want to repeat that it inspires curiosity, it stimulates their imagination, and it piques their curiosity. And we have to be, as it is, let everybody know that there's a clarion call for us to bring back play into our preschools. We have to either do some form of sensitization, ramp it up so that persons can know this is the way that we have to go. And there's nothing wrong with what we did when we were old, because to my mind, It is keeping us young, because all of you were saying, oh, you're telling my age, you look quite young too. And I think play would have done that as well. So let's get back to the board. Bring play on.
I will agree with all of my colleagues. I've been saying it that we need to give the children the opportunity to play, because play is the foundation for what my colleague would have said before. The focus is on literacy and numeracy and all of that. And children learn all of those foundation skills through play. They learn critical thinking skill and they learn problem solving skill on their own. So if we give them the opportunity to play, then we will have better children. And one of my colleagues said that when children play, it's like the neurons in their brain could light up a 100-watt bulb. So you have to give them the opportunity for the release so that they can enjoy themselves, because it is fun-filled. They enjoy themselves and it is what they want to do. Thank you.
All right. I honestly feel like I would go out and start playing right now. That's how I feel like going to play, you know, creating something, you know, being deliberate. I just want to take away from this that in my corner where I can be I am an advocate for play. And so if I can make a change in my section, in my division, in my department, with my students, I believe that when I make that impact, they will also make an impact on the children, and it will have a ripple effect. You know, I teach teachers in training. And so if I can pass on my passion to them, you know, and pass on the relevance of play in the whole equation, they will also implement, and I'm sure that they will catch a wave, the play wave that we want. And I am sure that this conversation that we're having right now is supposed to provoke the thought and to remind us as to the impact of play and what it has done for us in the past and now and forever, you know, what it will do for our children. And so amidst the crisis, we still need to play. And in the Caribbean context, we still need to play. Whatever is happening around us, we still need to play. Even when we are now old and gray, we still need to play.
Well said from all of our panelists. I tell you that we were in for a treat, and I'm sure we had a belly full of information. And I am hoping that we are re-energized to reimagine play, and therefore, you know, will enhance our children's development, holistic development, that is. So I see where today we have, you know, learned, or we have been reminded to embrace or you know, our culture in terms of what we did in the past in terms of playing, ensuring that, you know, at times we play and we don't even remember that we are hungry. I really love that, because I do remember those days when you play. You know, I've had those situations where I just used to play around. Yes, and it never made me any worse off, I'm sure. So it enhanced our development. Seeing where we need to have parent education. I hear that coming out from our panelists today. So definitely our parents need to be further educated, and we need to motivate our teachers, remind them, you know, some would know already, I'm sure. And then maybe there are others who just need a little reminder and a little push to say, remember when? Yes. We see where we need to change our mindset. And so we need to reshape the culture of saying that play is not learning. We want to reimagine play as we're doing today, to say that play is learning. We have to make intentional efforts. I hear that coming out from everyone, that we have to be intentional about ensuring that children have the opportunity to play. I see too that there needs to be collaboration between the different levels of education, and also between the different stakeholders, or parents, or lecturers, or the chairman for institutions, researchers. So there needs to be collaboration among all stakeholders. And guess what? Even the children too have a part to play in terms of them being a part of the conversation. They can tell us what it is they want to play, And maybe there's some children who are maybe exposed to more screen time, but there are parents, I believe, and other teachers who are giving the children some amount of other experiences other than the screen time. But a valid point relating to the screen time that we really have to make an intentional effort to get the children removing away from the screen time, so much screen time. I hear where you say that implementation is key. So a lot of research has been done. Yes, this is Cambridge. Research can always be done again because we are in shifting times. Of course, we're in new times. And so research is always important, to see how best we can navigate what it is we're experiencing now. But we can also definitely see that a lot of research has been done, a lot of books have been written on play, and so we can learn from those and start to implement. I love where you said that we need to prepare the environment. And again, that is of course being intentional about our plans for helping children to play. And I will borrow your statement, Mrs. Cambridge, where you said there's a clarion call. So colleagues, there is a clarion call to bring back play. Let us reimagine, let us reemerge from this pandemic, ensuring that our children are getting the best experience that they do deserve, which is to learn through play. So I just want to thank you very much for your presence here. I must say that you have done excellently. All right, a job well done. The discussion was really enlightening, and I'm sure you will continue the discussion. And I'm encouraging those of us who have attended the session to continue the discussion. Continue with your parents, continue it with the children, continue it with the board chairman, continue with your lecturers, just continue with community members. Yes, because we really want to spread this call for us to reimagine play. All right, so I thank you, our participants. You have been wonderful. I see where you are really typing in the chat and you're saying that the session was well done and you appreciate the session. So thank you very much for your attendance, and let us continue to the discourse, of course, for us to reimagine play. I have shared a link in the chat, which is the evaluation for today's session. So I ask you to complete that evaluation. We really want to know further how it is today was for you. Someone had asked a question about certificate of participation. If you receive a certificate for attending today's session, and yes, you will receive a certificate of participation for being here today. So thank you again, and we do welcome you. We do ask that you continue to attend our Reimagine Play sessions, which will continue right through, because here at the Early Childhood Commission, we realize that play is very important in our children's lives. So thank you again, panelists. Thank you, participants. Have a wonderful afternoon. It was indeed great to have had you here.